He didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, he drove through the downpour back to their cramped apartment in Portland's Pearl District, the wipers slapping rhythmically like a metronome counting down to the end of everything he knew. The place smelled of her chamomile tea and the faint lavender from the candles she lit every Sunday, a ritual to ward off the loneliness that had crept in after his father left 12 years ago. Rhett collapsed onto the couch, the eviction notice from her nursing shifts cutting short, staring up at him from the coffee table. And that's when the phone buzzed. A number he hadn't saved, but the area code screamed small-town Oregon coast. "Rhett, it's your dad. I heard about Ellen. Come home, son. You can't do this alone. Home." The word tasted like ash. Dad, Jack Harlan, had vanished into the ether after the divorce, chasing some vague dream of reinvention in Astoria, that foggy fishing town where the Columbia River met the Pacific, all clapboard houses and secrets buried under salt air. Rhett had built walls around the abandonment, convinced himself he was fine with Mom's quiet bitterness as their companion. But now, with her gone, the silence roared. He packed a single duffel bag, jeans, hoodies, a dog-eared copy of Kerouac's On the Road that she'd given him for his 18th birthday, and hit the highway west, the Willamette Valley blurring into emerald hills that mocked his unraveling heart. Astoria welcomed him with a drizzle that seeped into his bones, the kind of persistent wet that made everything feel heavier. Jack's house squatted on a hillside overlooking the bay, a weathered craftsman with peeling blue paint and a porch swing creaking in the wind. Rhett pulled up as dusk bled into night, the headlights catching a figure in the doorway. Tall, broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Rhett," Jack said, pulling him into a hug that smelled of pipe tobacco and pine. "You look just like her." The embrace lingered too long, or maybe not long enough, and Rhett pulled away first, mumbling about the drive. Inside, the house was a museum of second chances. Nautical charts on the walls, a stone fireplace crackling with fresh logs, and photos of Jack on shrimp boats, grinning with crews that looked like they'd seen storms and survived. But then there was the man in the kitchen, stirring a pot of clam chowder, his back to them, lean and graceful, with dark curls tied back in a loose ponytail, wearing a flannel shirt rolled to his elbows over faded Levi's. He turned, and Rhett's breath hitched. "Elias," Jack said, clapping a hand on the man's shoulder. "This is my boy, Rhett. Rhett, meet Elias Crow, my partner." Partner. The word hung there, casual as the steam rising from the stove, but it landed like a thunderclap. Rhett's dad, the straight arrow mill worker who'd preached football and fishing rods. Married to a man? Elias extended a hand, his grip firm and warm, eyes a deep hazel that seemed to see straight through the exhaustion etched on Rhett's face. "Heard a lot about you," Elias said, his voice low and steady, like the hum of a distant lighthouse. "Sorry about your mom. Chowder's almost ready, helps with the chill." Dinner was a minefield of small talk. Jack rambled about the cannery where he consulted now, the boats that still called him out at dawn, avoiding the elephant in the room until the second bowl when he cleared his throat. "I should have been there, Rhett. After the divorce, things got complicated. But I'm here now. This is your home too." Rhett nodded, fork scraping porcelain, his mind reeling. Complicated. That's what Jack had called it back then. The late nights, the whispers with Mom about finding himself. Rhett had buried the questions, focused on surviving high school crushes that felt like crimes, the furtive hookups in college that left him hollow. Elias watched quietly, refilling water glasses, his presence a steady undercurrent. He was a woodworker, Jack explained, crafting custom furniture for the tourist shops along the riverfront, with hands scarred from chisels and a laugh that rumbled like gravel under tires. 45, maybe, with laugh lines that spoke of joy's hard one. As they cleared plates, Elias brushed past Rhett in the narrow galley, his arm grazing Rhett's in a way that sent a spark up his spine. Accidental, surely, but it lingered. "You settling in okay?" Elias asked later, as Jack excused himself to the den for a call. Rhett leaned against the counter, the house settling around them like it was holding its breath. "Not really," Rhett admitted, the words tumbling out unbidden. "She was everything. And now, this." He gestured vaguely at the walls, the life Jack had built without them. Elias nodded, wiping his hands on a dish towel, his gaze unwavering. Grief's a thief, Rhett. Steals the air right out of you. But it doesn't take everything. You've got stories in you yet. There was no pity in his tone, just a quiet knowing that made Rhett's chest ache less sharply. For the first time in days, he felt seen, not as the broken son, but as a man with edges and shadows worth exploring. That night, Rhett lay in the guest room overlooking the bay, the waves whispering against the pilings below. Sleep evaded him, chased away by the creak of floorboards and the murmur of voices from the master suite down the hall. Jack and Elias, their laughter soft and intimate, a world Rhett had no map for. He thought of Mom's last words in the hospital, her hand frail in his. Find your light, baby. Don't let the dark win. Rolling over, he stared at the ceiling, the rain tapping a Morse code of loss. But beneath it, faint as a heartbeat, stirred something else. A curiosity, a pull toward the man in the kitchen whose eyes held storms of their own. The days blurred into a rhythm of fog and routine. Rhett job hunted online, scrolling listings for baristas or warehouse gigs in town, but mostly he wandered Astoria streets, past the Goonies filming spots turned tourist traps, the coffee shops buzzing with hipsters who'd fled Portland for cheaper rent. Jack was gone early most mornings, leaving Rhett and Elias to shared silences over breakfast. Black coffee for Rhett, herbal tea for Elias, who sketched designs on napkins while the radio played old Springsteen tracks. Boss gets it, Elias said one morning, tapping his pencil to Thunder Road. That ache for escape, the promise of something real on the other side. Rhett sipped his mug, watching Elias's fingers dance over paper, veins prominent against tanned skin. You ever think about running? He asked, the question slipping out like a confession. Elias looked up, his smile crooked. Ran plenty, from Texas oil fields to here. But running's just circling back if you don't face what's chasing you. Their eyes met, and Rhett felt it again. That electric hum, like static before a storm. He broke away first, mumbling about a walk, but the air between them thickened, charged with unspoken histories. One afternoon, Elias invited him to the workshop behind the house. A shed alive with sawdust and the scent of cedar. Need a hand? Rhett offered, more to fill the quiet than anything. Elias handed him a sanding block, guiding his grip on a half-formed table leg. Their shoulders brushed as they worked, the rhythm hypnotic, shavings curling like whispers at their feet. You're a natural, Elias murmured. Close enough that Rhett caught the faint spice of his cologne mixed with wood. Heat flushed Rhett's neck, and he stepped back, laughing it off as clumsiness. But in that moment, with the lathe humming and lights slanting through salt-streaked windows, Rhett glimpsed it. A life not defined by loss, but by creation, by hands that built instead of broke. As evening fell, Jack returned with crab from the docks, and they ate on the porch, the bay a silver ribbon under twilight. Stories flowed, Jack's boyhood pranks, Elias's wild youth in Austin, Rhett's college days dodging expectations. Laughter came easier, a bridge over the chasm. But when Jack draped an arm around Elias, pulling him close with a kiss that was casual, profound, Rhett's stomach twisted. Not jealousy exactly, something sharper, a longing for that ease, that unapologetic touch. He excused himself early, retreating to his room, heart pounding. In the mirror, his reflection stared back. Green eyes wide, cheeks flushed, like a man waking from a long sleep, only to find the dream bleeding into reality. Weeks slipped by like tide pools receding, each one revealing more of Astoria's underbelly. The Saturday market with its kaleidoscope of fresh sourdough and handmade leather goods, the trailheads snaking into rainforests where ferns dripped like forgotten tears. Rhett landed a gig at the local bookstore, a dusty haven called River's Edge Books, shelving paperbacks and recommending indies to fishermen's wives who craved escape. It paid enough to chip at Mom's medical debts, and the owner, a wry septuagenarian named Dolores, slipped him free lattes with a wink. You got that brooding artist vibe, kid. Draws him in. But it was the evenings that unraveled him. Jack's shifts at the cannery stretched long, leaving the house to Rhett and Elias, their interactions evolving from polite deflections to lingering conversations over takeout Thai or walks along the seawall. Elias had a way of drawing out Rhett's buried pieces, the poetry he'd scribbled in margins during law school dropout days, the road trips with Mom chasing wildflowers in the Cascades. "She sounds fierce," Elias said one night, as they pored over her old photo album on the living room rug, knees almost touching. "Like she taught you to fight for the beautiful messes." Rhett traced a picture of her laughing at a county fair, cotton candy in hand. "She did, but fighting alone. It's exhausting." His voice cracked, and Elias's hand hovered, then settled lightly on his shoulder. A touch meant to steady, but it ignited something feral. Rhett leaned in despite himself, inhaling the warmth of him, until the front door clicked open and Jack's boots thudded in the hall. The moment shattered, leaving Rhett adrift in guilty currents. He started running at dawn, pounding the paths along Young's River, lungs burning against the chill, trying to outpace the dreams that plagued his sleep. Elias's hands on oak, calluses rough against Rhett's skin, hazel eyes locking with green in the half-light. Waking tangled in sheets, he'd lie there, pulse racing, shame coiling like fog. This was his father's husband, for Christ's sake. The man who'd given Jack a second act. Betrayal wasn't just a possibility. It was a siren call, luring him toward rocks he couldn't uncrash from. Yet Elias seemed oblivious, or perhaps willfully blind, his kindness a constant. A thermos of coffee left on the porch swing, a dog-eared copy of the Prophet slid under Rhett's door with a note. "For the questions that keep you up." Rhett devoured it, Khalil Gibran's words echoing his turmoil. "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked." One Sunday, as Jack nursed a hangover from a rare night out with old crewmates, Elias suggested a drive to Cannon Beach, just the two of them. "To clear the cobwebs," he said, tossing Rhett the keys to his battered Ford pickup. The highway wound through Sitka spruce tunnels, Haystack Rock looming on the horizon like a sentinel from another era. They parked near the tide pools, boots crunching over pebbles, the ocean's roar a bomb against the knot in Rhett's throat. Elias skipped stones with effortless flicks, each one bouncing farther than the last. "Your turn," he challenged, handing Rhett a smooth basalt. Their fingers brushed, and this time, Rhett held on a beat too long, searching Elias's face for a sign. Repulsion, invitation, anything. Elias's expression softened, a flicker of something raw passing through his eyes. "You're carrying a lot, Rhett. More than this place can hold." They sat on a driftwood log, waves gnawing at the shore, and Rhett spilled it. The hookups that felt like transactions, the ex in Portland who'd called him too intense, Mom's unspoken hope that he'd find the one before she faded. Elias listened, chin on his knees, then shared his own scars. Coming out in a Bible Belt town, the beatings that sent him hitchhiking west, the years of reinvention until Jack, steady as the tide, pulled him ashore. "Love's not a straight line," Elias said, voice rough with memory. "It's a series of shipwrecks you learn to sail through." The sun dipped low, painting the sky in bruised purples, and as they rose to leave, a gust whipped Rhett's hoodie, tangling it. Elias reached to free him, fingers grazing his collarbone, and time stuttered. Rhett's hand caught Elias's wrist, holding it there, breaths mingling in the salt air. "What are we doing?" Rhett whispered, the question a plea. Elias's thumb traced a slow circle on his skin, eyes darkening. "Hanging on. Same as always." But the pull was magnetic, undeniable. And when their lips met, soft, tentative, tasting of sea and regret, it was like igniting dry tinder. They broke apart gasping, the world rushing back in waves. "This can't," Rhett stammered, stepping into the surf's edge, cold water shocking his ankles. Elias raked a hand through his curls, face etched with torment. "I know. God. Rhett, I know." The drive home was silent agony, radio off, the pickup's engine a growl underscoring their unspoken pact. Pretend, bury, survive. But the kiss lingered like a bruise, sweet and swollen, coloring every glance that followed. Back in Astoria, normalcy fractured further. Jack noticed the tension, chalking it to Rhett's grief, pulling him aside after dinner one night. "You're quiet lately, son. Talk to me." Rhett forced a smile, throat tight. "Just adjusting. This, you and Elias. It's good to see you happy." Jack's eyes misted, clapping his back. "Couldn't have done it without him. Man's my anchor." The irony twisted like a knife, and Rhett fled to the workshop, where Elias was planing a board under the work lamp, shadows playing across his forearms. "I can't stop thinking about it," Rhett blurted, door clicking shut behind him. Elias set down the tool, wiping sweat from his brow. "Neither can I. But Jack." His voice trailed, heavy with loyalty's weight. They stood inches apart, the air humming with what-ifs, until Elias closed the gap, kissing him fiercely this time. No hesitation, hands framing Rhett's face as if memorizing contours. It was desperate, all teeth and tongue, bodies pressing against the workbench until a splinter snagged Rhett's palm, drawing blood. They stilled, reality bleeding in. "We have to end this," Elias said, bandaging the cut with steady hands, though his trembled. Rhett nodded, tears stinging. But as he lay awake that night, the house's walls felt thinner, secrets seeping through like damp. The next morning, Dolores at the bookstore pressed a flyer into his hand. A poetry slam at the local brewpub. "Get it out, Harlan. Words are cheaper than therapy." He went, reciting a piece about shipwrecks and stolen lights, voice cracking on the stage. In the crowd, Elias sat at the back, unnoticed by Rhett until applause died and their eyes locked across the dim room. A silent vow or warning. The betrayal brewed slow, like chowder simmering. Rhett threw himself into shifts, stacking books until his arms ached, flirting harmlessly with a barista named Theo who had tattoos like watercolor maps. But Theo's easy banter paled against Elias's depth, and Rhett pulled away, guilt his constant shadow. One evening, rain lashing the windows, Jack announced a weekend fishing trip with buddies. "Guy time. Rhett, you in?" Rhett demurred, citing inventory. But truth was the solitude with Elias terrified him as much as it tempted. Alone, they cooked pasta, wine loosening tongues. Elias played guitar by the fire, fingers coaxing melodies from strings that mirrored Rhett's pulse. Dylan's "Don't Think Twice," raw and rueful. Rhett joined him on the rug, head on Elias's thigh, the older man's hand carding through his hair. "Tell me a secret," Rhett murmured, emboldened by Merlot. Elias hesitated. Then, "I fell for Jack because he saw me, really saw. But you make me remember who I was before the settling." The admission hung, vulnerable, and Rhett rose to straddle him, kisses deepening into exploration, shirts shed in the firelight. It was inevitable. That night, bodies entwined on the bearskin rug, Elias's scars mapping stories under Rhett's lips, gasps echoing off rafters. Rhett felt alive, electric, every touch erasing months of numbness. Dawn crept in gray, and they parted with whispered promises to stop, but the lie tasted bitter. Jack returned sunburned and buoyant, oblivious, hugging Rhett tight. "Missed you, bud." The words hollowed him, the double life a noose tightening. Autumn painted Astoria in rust and gold, leaves skittering like confessions across the streets. But inside Rhett, winter raged unchecked. The affair with Elias bloomed in stolen fragments, brushed fingertips over breakfast dishes, hurried trysts in the workshop when Jack's truck rumbled away. Each encounter chipped at Rhett's resolve, pleasure laced with poison, the high of Elias's body against his crashing into waves of self-loathing. "This is destroying me," he confessed one afternoon, forehead pressed to Elias's chest in the shed's dim confines, heart hammering from their latest indiscretion. Elias held him closer, breath ragged. "Me too. But walking away. I can't yet." His fingers traced Rhett's spine, a map of regrets, and they lingered there, tangled in sawdust, until the cannery whistle pierced the fog. Separation was agony, a slow bleed, and Rhett buried it in poetry, filling notebooks with verses of forbidden tides and fractured lights. Dolores read one over his shoulder at the bookstore, arching a brow. Heavy stuff, Harlan. Lover's lament. He flushed, changing the subject to shipments, but her knowing smile lingered. Jack, ever the fixer, sensed the undercurrents without naming them. He dragged Rhett to a Seahawks watch party at the pub, foam-fingered locals roaring at the screen, but Rhett's cheers rang hollow, eyes drifting to the door where Elias might appear. When he did, sliding onto a stool with a pint, their gazes collided like flint on steel. Spark, ignite, burn. Jack slung an arm around Elias, oblivious, toasting to family. And Rhett choked on his beer, excusing himself to the alley, retching into the rain. Theo cornered him there, cigarette glowing. You look like hell, man. What's eating you? Rhett wiped his mouth, the truth bubbling up. Everything. My dad's husband. I think I'm in love with him. The words hung, freeing yet damning, and Theo's face softened, pulling him into a hug that was all platonic comfort. That's a storm, Rhett. Ride it out, but don't drown. Back inside, the game's roar swallowed him, but Elias's foot nudged his under the table. A secret Morse, ... The crisis crested mid-November, fog so thick it smothered the bay. Jack proposed a family hike to the lighthouse at Cape Disappointment, across the river in Washington, to blow off steam. Rhett agreed, desperate for normalcy, but the trail's isolation amplified every tension. Elias walked ahead, pack slung low, while Rhett and Jack lagged, father-son talk turning probing. You seeing anyone? Jack asked, boots crunching gravel. Rhett's laugh was brittle. Not really. Portland burned me out. Jack nodded, eyes on the path. Love's tricky. Took me years to figure that. Elias, he's the real deal. Don't settle for less. The lighthouse loomed white against slate skies, waves crashing below like accusations. They picnicked on the cliff, sandwiches and thermos coffee, wind whipping words away. But when Jack stepped inside for the tour, leaving them alone, Elias turned to Rhett, face grave. We end this now. For him. For us. Rhett's heart seized, nodding through tears. Yeah, before it breaks everything. Their hands clasped briefly, a farewell. But as Jack emerged, beaming with a souvenir mug, the fracture lines spiderwebbed invisible. That night, betrayal erupted. Rhett, unable to sleep, padded to the kitchen for water, only to freeze at the den's glow. Jack on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling messages Rhett hadn't deleted from a burner app, frantic texts to Elias. Can't stop. Need you. The air thickened, Jack's face crumpling as he looked up. Rhett? What the hell is this? His voice was thunder, low and lethal. Rhett's world tilted, knees buckling. Dad, Jack surged up, phone clattering. With Elias? My husband? Jesus Christ, son. The words lashed, each one a betrayal returned tenfold. Rhett stammered apologies, the affair spilling in ragged bursts. The kiss on the beach, the nights in the workshop, the love that had bloomed like poison ivy. Jack paced, face ashen, fists clenched. I trusted you, both of you. This house, it's poison now. He stormed out into the rain, truck peeling away, leaving Rhett shattered on the floor. Elias found him there at dawn, eyes hollow. He knows. Rhett nodded, voice gone. Elias sank beside him, arms enveloping, but Rhett recoiled. Don't. You chose this, him, us, the lie. Elias's face twisted. I chose wrong. Every time. But the damage festered, and when Jack returned, reeking of whiskey from a motel bar, the confrontation reignited. Pack your shit, Rhett. I can't look at you. The eviction cut deeper than Mom's death. A second abandonment, and Rhett obeyed numbly, duffel in hand, rain soaking him to the marrow as he trudged to his car. Theo's couch became refuge. The barista's apartment a cramped area overlooking the river. Pity coffee steaming on the counter. Stay as long as you need, Theo said. But Rhett felt like a ghost, haunting his own life. Poetry slams turned maudlin, verses of shattered anchors drawing sparse claps. Dolores pulled him aside post-shift. You're spiraling, kid. Call your dad. Fix it. But pride walled him off. and calls went unanswered, voicemails piling like unanswered prayers. Elias reached out once. A letter slipped under the bookstore door. I'm sorry. I broke us all. But you made me feel alive too, wild. Real. Forgive yourself first. Rhett burned it in the sink, flames licking words to ash, but the embers scorched his chest. Holidays loomed, Thanksgiving a specter, and Jack's silence screamed louder than any shout. Rhett wandered the waterfront alone, gulls wheeling overhead, wondering if healing was just another horizon, always retreating. Winter bit hard, first snow dusting the hills like grief's fine powder. Rhett quit running, body heavy, but Theo dragged him to a bonfire on the beach. Locals in beanies, marshmallows toasting to copper glows. There, amid laughter and fiddle tunes, Rhett spotted Jack across the flames, face gaunt, Elias absent. Their eyes met, and Jack approached slow, beer in hand. Can't keep avoiding this, he said, voice gravel. Rhett braced. I ruined everything. Jack sighed, staring into the fire. You didn't. We all did, me leaving, not telling you sooner about this. He gestured vaguely, meaning his truth, their fractured family. Elias confessed too, said it started innocent, then snowballed. Rhett's throat closed. I love him, Dad. That's the worst part. Jack's hand landed on his shoulder, heavy but not crushing. Love's a bastard, but it's not the end. They sat then, side by side, flames dancing reflections in their eyes, words carving tentative paths through the ice. Christmas Eve blanketed Astoria in hush, street lamps haloed by frost, the bay a black mirror under stars. Rhett's reconciliation with Jack was fragile, a truce forged in barstools and half-truths. But it held dinners at the house, Elias a polite specter at the table, eyes downcast, touches avoided. The air crackled with unspoken fractures, but Jack's presence anchored them, his gruff, pass the rolls, a ritual reclaiming normalcy. Rhett moved back into the guest room, walls papered in restraint, nights spent journaling the ache. How do you unlove what revives you? Theo became confessor, their coffee dates at the bookstore evolving into something tentative. Stolen kisses in the stacks, his inked fingers tracing Rhett's jaw. You're not broken, Theo murmured after one, breath warm against his ear. But Rhett pulled back, the comparison inevitable. Theo's youth, his easy optimism, paled against Elias's weathered depth. Guilt gnawed, and he confessed it over eggnog at a New Year's party. Theo's loft strung with lights. I'm not ready, Rhett said, voice small. Theo nodded, hurt flickering. Whenever you are. Or not. Friends first. The new year dawned crisp. Resolutions whispered to the wind. Heal. Forgive. Rebuild. Rhett enrolled in community college courses. Creative writing. A nod to mom's dreams. Professor a sharp-eyed woman named Mira, who dissected his submissions with surgical kindness. Your voice has teeth, she told him after class, handing back a story of coastal ghosts. Bite harder. Elias, spotting the textbook in the kitchen, raised a brow. Writer, huh? Fits. Their first full sentence in months, neutral ground, but Rhett's pulse betrayed him, fleeing to the porch. Spring thawed the bay's edges, tulips pushing through garden beds Jack tended with uncharacteristic patience. Family therapy started in March, a beige office in Warrenton where Dr. Lena Navarro, with her salt-streaked bun and no-nonsense gaze, unpacked their Pandora's box. Betrayal isn't a solo act, she said. As Jack fidgeted, Elias stared at his boots. Rhett picked at cuticles. Sessions dredged the divorce. Jack's hidden affairs with men, Mom's denial-fueled rage, and the affair's echo, how vulnerability had twisted into violation. Boundaries, Dr. Navarro hammered. They're not walls. They're bridges. Progress crept. Jack sharing fishing tales from his youth. Elias teaching Rhett dovetail joints in the workshop, hands guiding without lingering. One evening, as they sanded a cherrywood chest destined for Jack's birthday, Elias paused, chisel in hand. I'm proud of you, Rhett. The writing, the fight. His voice was low, genuine, and Rhett met his eyes. Hazel steady, no storm. Thanks to you. Even the hard parts. A beat. Then Elias's hand squeezed his shoulder, brotherly, final. The touch healed more than it hurt, a suture on old wounds. But crisis shadowed renewal. In April, during a rare solo shift at the cannery, Jack suffered a heart scare. Palpitations sending him to the ER, monitors beeping like accusatory echoes. Rhett raced there, Elias already at his side, face ashen under fluorescence. He's stable, the doctor said. Stress-related likely, but in the waiting room, truth spilled. Jack's guilt over the past, the divorce's toll, how the affair had cracked his already fragile ticker. I pushed too hard, Rhett whispered to Elias, head in hands. Elias knelt, voice fierce. No, we all did, but he's tough. Like you. Jack's recovery was slow, bed rest chafing his independence, but it knit them tighter. Rhett cooking bland oats, Elias reading aloud from audiobooks, evenings in the den with bad TV and better talks. I was scared of you knowing me, Jack admitted one night, oxygen mask discarded. The gay dad thing. Thought it'd make me less in your eyes. Rhett's eyes burned. You're everything. Flaws and all. Forgiveness flowed then, a river carving canyons, and when Jack hugged him, it was whole. Summer hummed in, festivals dotting the calendar, the crab festival with its butter-drenched boils, Rhett manning a booth for the bookstore, hawking LGBTQ plus lit to curious crowds. Elias volunteered nearby, carving mini lighthouses, their stalls adjacent by chance or fate. Laughter bridged the space, shared glances over heads, a camaraderie reborn. Theo attended, arm slung casual around Rhett's waist, but the ease felt forced, and later, under Ferris wheel lights, Rhett ended it gently. You're amazing, but my heart's still mending. Theo grinned, bittersweet. Knew it. Go find your story, poet. Myra's class culminated in a reading at the community center, Rhett's piece. A vignette of a son reclaiming his father's sea. A hit, applause thundering. Jack and Elias sat front row, Jack's whoop loudest, Elias's nod profound. Backstage, Mira clapped his back. Published material, Harlan. Submit it. Elation surged, a buoy in choppy waters, and at the after-party, beers clinking, Rhett felt the shift. Not whole, but healing, scars silvering to strength. Yet the undercurrent pulled. One stormy July night, power flickering, Elias found Rhett on the porch, notebook sodden. Can't write in this? He teased, settling beside him under the overhang. Thunder rolled, and stories poured. Elias's Austin escapades, Rhett's Portland heartbreaks, laughter pealing like bells. As rain eased, Elias's hand covered his, thumb stroking knuckles. You make this life brighter, Rhett, even now. The air stilled, temptation's ghost rising, but Rhett withdrew gently. Friends. Elias smiled, sad sweet. Always. Autumn circled back, leaves a carpet of memory, and with it, opportunity. A Portland lit mag accepted Rhett's story, paying enough for a deposit on a studio downtown. Moving? Jack asked over breakfast, fork paused. Rhett nodded, heart twisting. Time to stand on my own. Pride warred with loss in Jack's eyes. Proud of you, son. Doors always open. Elias hugged him last, brief and bone deep. Write the world alive, Rhett. The words lingered as he drove the familiar highway, Astoria shrinking in the rearview, a chapter closed but carried. Portland greeted him with bustle. The Pearl District, an echo of old griefs now layered with hope. He sublet a loft near the bookstore chain job he'd lined up. Walls bare but for Mom's photo and Elias's old chisel, a talisman. Dates came. A architect with kind eyes, a musician whose songs stirred but didn't settle. Writing flowed, a novel outline taking shape. A gay son navigating family tempests, finding harbor in self. One crisp October weekend, a call from Jack. Harvest fair in town. Come home. Rhett went, the midway alive with caramel apples and hayrides. They wandered as family. Jack arm in arm with Elias. Rhett trailing then joining, laughter unforced. Under cotton candy clouds, Elias pulled him aside. Heard about the acceptance. Knew you had it. Rhett grinned. Learned from the best. Their hug was pure, no shadows, and as fireworks burst over the bay, Rhett felt it. Alive again, not despite the wreckage, but through it. Portland's pulse quickened Rhett's veins, the city's neon veins threading through his days. Morning jogs along the steel bridge, fog lifting to reveal the Willamette's gleam. Afternoons lost in manuscript revisions at cafes where baristas knew his order. Oat milk latte, extra foam. The novel grew, chapters bleeding onto pages like confessions. A protagonist named after no one, but echoing everyone. Grieving son, forbidden lover, man remade by rupture. His agent, a sharp Brooklyn transplant named Sloan, buzzed with edits. This has teeth, Harlan. Raw, real, queer-lit gold. But roots tugged southward. Jack's check-ins turned weekly, voice brighter. Elias finished that chest. Looks like a museum piece. Rhett smiled through static, the mentions a soft ache. Elias's absence a hollow in his chest. He dated sparingly. A graphic novelist named Finn, whose loft smelled of ink and ambition. Their nights tangled in conceptual pillow talk. Finn was safe, sparks without inferno. But when Rhett caught himself tracing phantom scars on Finn's back, he pulled away. Not you, he explained over breakup brunch. Me, still unpacking boxes in my head. Finn nodded. Easy. Unpack slow. Good stories take time. Astoria called in November. A reading at River's Edge. Dolores's retirement bash. Her invite insistent. Your debut, kid. Don't ghost us. Rhett drove down. Nerves electric. The familiar fog wrapping like an old coat. The bookstore brimmed. Locals in wool. Jack and Elias front row again. Their clasped hands a quiet testament. Rhett read from the novel's opening. A beachside reckoning, words tumbling raw, and the room hushed, then erupted. Dolores hugged him fierce. Told you. Bite. After, at the pub, toasts flowed, Jack's arm heavy around his shoulders. My boy's a star. Elias lingered peripheral, congratulating with a beer clink, eyes warm. Knew it. Conversation flowed easy, shop talk on plot twists, until Jack stepped away for darts, leaving them in a booth's intimacy. Missed this, Red admitted, voice low. Elias's smile faltered. Missed you. The air thickened, memories coiling, but Dr. Navarro's voice echoed boundaries, and Rhett steered to safe harbors. The novel's arc, Portland's scene. Winter solstice brought snow to the coast, blanketing Astoria in muffled white. Rhett stayed over, the house a cocoon of cocoa and crackling fire. Jack shared war stories from the cannery. Elias demoed a new router, but bedtime brought ghosts. Rhett's room adjacent to theirs, murmurs seeping through walls like smoke. He slipped out at midnight, wandering the iced paths to the seawall, waves silver under moon. Footsteps crunched behind. Elias, coat loose. Can't sleep. Rhett shook his head. Too much noise in my head. They walked, shoulders brushing snow, silence companionable until Elias stopped. Therapy's helping us, Jack and me. The trust. It's rebuilding. Rhett nodded, breath clouding. Good. You deserve that. A pause, then, do you ever think about more? Elias's eyes searched his, turmoil surfacing. Every day. But it's done, Rhett. Has to be. The finality stung, but clarity followed, a release, not rejection. They hugged then, fierce and final, snow melting on lashes. Back inside, Jack snored softly, and Rhett slept dreamless, waking to pancakes and plans. Spring unfurled in Portland, cherry blossoms rioting pink, and with them, opportunity. Sloan pitched the manuscript to imprints, a bidding war simmering. Rhett celebrated solo at a drag brunch, mimosas fizzing, Queen's lip syncing to Gaga with fabulous ferocity. A stranger caught his eye, tall, with a lopsided grin and curls like Elias's but wilder. Named Luca, a teacher from Seattle visiting friends. Their chat sparked over bad coffee puns, evolving to a walk in Washington Park, Iris's nodding approval. Luca was uncomplicated. Out since 16, family affirming, passions for poetry slams and foster pups. You write? He asked, eyes lighting. Rhett grinned. Trying. Dates multiplied. Picnics in Forest Park. Luca's hand warm in his. Kisses tasting of possibility. But doubt nipped. Was this rebound? Or real? Sloane's call interrupted a sunset hike. Offer from Riverhead. 6 figures, Harlan. You're in. Elation exploded, and Rhett drove to Astoria unannounced, bursting into the house mid-dinner. Jack hooped, bear hug enveloping, Elias's clap thunderous. To Rhett, beers raised, and as plates cleared, Luca texted, "Proud of you. Dinner soon?" Rhett replied yes, heart buoyant. Summer scorched the valley, heat waves shimmering, and Rhett's launch loomed. July release, promo tour sketched. Jack and Elias drove up for the signing at Powell's, the city's literary cathedral, shelves a labyrinth of dreams. Fans queued, strangers clutching arcs, praising the honest gut punch. Jack beamed, Elias's nod profound. Told you. Post-event, over Tie and the Pearl, Luca joined, his easy charm meshing, stories of Seattle's queer scene, Jack's fishing yarns drawing laughs. As they parted, Luca kissed Rhett slow under streetlights, whispering, "This feels right." But climax brewed in August, a callback to old storms. During a coastal book tour stop in Astoria, Rhett stayed at the house, Luca in tow for the weekend. Tensions simmered subtle, Elias's gaze lingering on Luca's laugh, Jack's jokes forced. Saturday hike to the column overlook, views sweeping to infinity, Luca's hand in Rhett's, but Elias lagged, face shadowed. At the summit, wind whipping, he pulled Rhett aside. "He's good for you. Really." Rhett searched his eyes. "Jealous." Elias laughed. Bitter. Relieved. And yeah, a little wrecked. Honesty cracked open, and Rhett hugged him. Luca watching from afar, understanding in his stance. That night, bonfire on the beach, group dynamic teetering. Luca's stories clashing with Elias's silences. Jack nursing a beer. Sparks flew wrong when Luca, tipsy, joked about daddy issues in lit. Oblivious to the undercurrent. Elias stiffened, excusing himself, and Rhett followed to the dunes. "He's harmless," Rhett soothed. Elias rounded, voice raw. "It's not him. It's us, the what-ifs that won't die." The admission ignited, lips crashing in a kiss fueled by farewell, hands fisting shirts, until voices called them back. Guilt crashed post-kiss, Rhett confessing to Luca in the guest room, words tumbling. Luca listened, hurt etching lines. "I knew there was history, but this, it's fresh." Rhett nodded, tears hot. "I'm sorry. I thought I was past it." Luca sighed, packing a bag. "You are, but not with him here. Figure it out. Rhett, call when you're clear." He left at dawn, taillights fading into mist, and Rhett confronted the wreckage alone. Jack found him on the porch, coffee steaming. Luca bailed. Rhett nodded, spent. Stirred up old shit. Jack sat heavy. "Elias told me the kiss. We're talking divorce again." The revelation floored, crisis cresting. "Because of me?" Jack shook his head. "Because we never fully healed. You just lit the fuse." Elias emerged then, eyes red-rimmed. "It's not you, Rhett. It's timing. We tried." The three sat in stunned silence, the bay indifferent below, bonds fraying to threads. Fall's decay mirrored the unraveling. Leaves rotting underfoot, Astoria's charm turning claustrophobic as Rhett shuttled between Portland and the coast, mediating the marital quake. Jack and Elias's separation was civil, papers drawn in Warrenton's quiet offices. Assets split like a halved apple. House to Jack, workshop to Elias, who rented a cottage by the river. "It's for the best," Elias said over moving boxes, voice steady but eyes pleading. Rhett helped haul, muscles straining, each thud a punctuation on finality. "You okay?" he asked, handing over a lamp. Elias's smile ghosted. "Getting there." "You?" Rhett wasn't. Luca's silence echoed, texts unanswered, and the novel's success soured, reviews praising its visceral queerness. But promo calls felt hollow, smiling through Zoom fatigue. Sloane pushed a sequel outline, but inspiration fled, pages blank as his heart. Mira, his old prof, emailed tough love. Write the pain, Harlan. That's where truth lives. He tried, holing up in the loft, rain lashing windows, but words looped on betrayal's carousel. His, theirs, the cycle unending. Thanksgiving loomed solitary until Jack invited him to the house, now echoey without Elias's guitar hums. They cooked turkey in silence, TV droning football, but midway Jack cracked. Miss him, you know? The quiet ways. Rhett nodded, carving meat. Me too. But maybe space is mercy. Jack's eyes sharpened. You still carrying that torch? Rhett deflected, but truth burned. Love for Elias lingered. Not flame but ember, warm against winter's bite. Elias surfaced at the bookstore reading. A slim crowd for Rhett's poetry chapbook launch. Verses of Mended Hulls and Horizon Hunts. He bought a copy, signing it later to Second Act C. Their chat was cordial, coffee after at the counter, updates on lives diverging. Seeing someone? Elias asked casual. Rhett shook his head. Healing solo. You? Elias's laugh was wry. Dipping toes. A potter from Seaside. Jealousy flickered, then faded to relief. Progress mutual. Winter gripped, holidays a gauntlet. Christmas at Jack's featured a tree strung sparse. Ornaments evoking ghosts. Mom's angel, Elias's hand-carved star now packed away. Rhett brought peace. A commissioned piece from a Portland artist. A seascape in blues, symbolizing depths navigated. Jack teared up, hugging tight. You're my anchor now, son. New Year's. Rhett rang it in Portland's first night. Fireworks blooming over the river. Strangers cheers a chorus to his quiet resolve. Release, rebuild. Spring brought green shoots. Luca resurfaced via email, apology-laced. Missed your light. Coffee? They met at a Selwood cafe. Awkward laughs thawing to flow. History not hurdle but texture. I'm clearer now, Rhett said, hands wrapping mugs. Luca's grin bloomed. Good, because I never stopped. Dates rekindled gentle. Hikes in the gorge. Luca's rescue dog bounding between them. Kisses deepening without urgency. But shadows nipped. Dreams of hazel eyes. Elias's voice in quiet moments. Crisis peaked in May. A call shattering Rhett's routine. Jack, voice wrecked. Elias had an accident. Workshop accident. Lost fingers. Rhett sped down, heart in throat, arriving at the hospital to Elias pale in bed, bandages swaddling his left hand. 2 digits gone to a bandsaw slip. Drunk, Elias muttered, shamefaced. Drowning it. Jack paced the hall, face haggard, the old pull evident. Rhett mediated. Dr. Navarro reconvened for emergency session. Trauma compounds, she said, as Elias winced through painkillers. But it can also clarify. Rehab followed, Elias's cottage a revolving door, Rhett stocking fridge, Jack driving to physio, their trio a fragile ecosystem. One evening, as Elias struggled with a jar, Rhett unscrewed it, their hands overlapping, echo of old intimacies. Thanks, Elias breathed, eyes locking. Tension hummed, but Rhett stepped back. Always. Luca visited once, meeting the fray, his steady presence a balm. Family's messy, he said later, driving home. But yours fights for it. Summer healed incrementally, Elias adapting prosthetics, carving one-handed with stubborn grace, Jack's cannery promotions easing finances. Rhett's sequel outline clicked, inspired by the accident's grit. Resilience in fracture. Sloan crowed, this'll top the first. Luca and Rhett deepened. Weekend in Seattle, Pike Place bustle. Nights in his apartment overlooking the sound. Bodies sinking slow and sure. Love this, Luca whispered post-love. Fingers in Rhett's hair. Rhett echoed it, meaning every syllable Elias's ember bank to glow. Fall harvest brought closure's cusp. At the county fair, Rhett, Luca, Jack, and Elias converged by chance. Booths of pies and pumpkins, air sweet with cider. Laughter bridged gaps, Jack and Elias chatting civil, no sparks. As dusk fell, Ferris wheel creaking, Rhett and Elias queued together, Luca with Jack ahead. The car lifted them high, bay twinkling below. Happy, Elias asked, voice soft. Rhett glanced down to Luca's waving form. Yeah. You. Elias nodded. Healing. Thanks to you both times. Their hands clasped brief, platonic seal, and as they descended, Rhett felt unburdened, the wheel turning full circle. November rains returned, but Rhett's world bloomed inward. Novel revisions humming, Luca's proposal for a joint poetry chapbook, Jack's first date announced shyly. A librarian from town. Wish me luck. Rhett grinned over phone. Conquer. Elias texted congrats. A photo of a new carving. A phoenix from driftwood. Rising, the caption read. Rhett replied heart emoji, simple, sufficient. Winter's Eve, Portland glittering. Rhett hosted, Jack driving up. Elias invited neutral. Dinner was potluck. Luca's lasagna, Jack's pie, Elias's bread. Talk flowed rivers, books, boats, futures sketched loose. As snow dusted sills, Jack raised glass. To us, flawed, fierce family. Eyes met around table, histories honored, and Rhett's chest swelled, alive in the mess made whole. The year wheeled into its close, Portland's skyline a jagged promise under January's pall. But Rhett's life steadied like a keel righted in calm. The sequel deal solidified, Sloane's negotiations yielding a tour from Seattle to San Francisco, readings in indie shops where queer voices amplified his own. Luca co-signed for the chapbook, their collaboration a dance of drafts over wine-soaked evenings, his feedback sharp yet tender. Lean into the hope here, readers need that light. Nights blurred into mornings, bodies entwined in the loft's alcove. Luca's curls tickling Rhett's neck, whispers of stay, sealing the quiet. Astoria visits normalized, highways no longer fraught but familiar veins. Jack thrived, the librarian, Becca with her wry humor and cat memes. Integrating slow, dinners at the house laced with her stories of rare first editions. Your dad's a keeper, she told Rhett privately, eyes twinkling. Rough edges, but gold underneath. Rhett agreed, watching Jack laugh genuine. The man who'd once fled now rooted deep. Elias's cottage hummed with reinvention. Commissions for adaptive tools. His one-handed designs featured in a Portland craft mag Adversity's Forge. He joked over coffee, bandages shed, scars proud. Yet emotional undercurrents ebbed persistent. In February, during a joint reading with Luca in Capitol Hill, a heckler from the back, drunk, red-faced, slurred slurs at the stage. Fairy tales for snowflakes. The room tensed, but Rhett stepped to the mic, voice steel. This isn't tale, it's truth. Our truths. And they endure. Applause thundered, Luca's hand squeezing his under the podium. But backstage, adrenaline crashed into tears. You were brilliant, Luca soothed, but Rhett confessed the trigger. Echoes of mom's hushed fights, dad's hidden shame. Vulnerability bonded them deeper, Luca's arms a haven. We'll write the counter-narrative. Together. Spring's thaw mirrored internal blooms. Rhett's novel tour kicked off in April, coastal hops laced with home. In Astoria's stop, the community center packed, Jack beaming from the wings, Elias in the crowd with Becca, neutral allies. Rhett read the healing arc, voice cracking on lines of forgiveness's salt sting, and Q&A turned therapy. A young man asking, how do you rebuild after betrayal? Rhett paused, eyes finding Elias's. You honor the break, let it teach, not define. And you lean on grace, given and received. Whispers rippled, and post-signing Elias approached. That was for me? Rhett nodded. For all of us. Their embrace was brief, familial, the past a chapter archived. Luca's influence wove subtle, introducing Rhett to his Seattle network, a queer writer's retreat in the Olympics where forests whispered inspiration. There, amid cedar cathedrals, Rhett penned the epilogue. Protagonist finding love not in storm's eye, but its wake, with a partner who saw scars as stars. Luca read it fireside, eyes soft. Us, Rhett smiled. Inspired. The retreat ended in proposal, not ring but promise. Luca on one knee in moss, words vowing partnership. Build with me. Rhett's yes was breath, kiss sealing under ancient boughs. Summer solstice brought convergence. A backyard wedding for Jack and Becca. Astoria's hills alive with lupin, tents strung with lanterns. Rhett stood best man, vows echoing his own quiet commitments. In flaws, we find forever. Elias attended solo, toasting with cider, his +1 a no-show but spirits high. Potter fizzled. He confided later by the fire pit. But life's long. Rhett clapped his shoulder. It is. Here's to chapters. Luca, mingling with locals, fit seamless, his hand finding Rhett's in the crowd. An anchor in revelry. Fall's palette deepened resolve. The sequel launched to acclaim, tides of return climbing charts, interviews probing the personal fire behind its heat. Rhett demurred graceful. Families forge, breaks and mends. Promo wove with life Luca's school year starting. Their rhythm-syncing weekends, Portland-Seattle shuttle a love-laced commute. One October Eve, post-reading in Eugene, Rhett drove coastal home, detouring to the beach where it began, the kiss in salt wind. Alone now, waves gnawing driftwood, he scattered mom's ashes remnant, vial from her drawer, words carried seaward. You were my first light, shine on. Winter's cusp tested, a nor'easter slamming the coast, power outages stranding Rhett at Jack's. Huddled by generator lamp, family tales spun, Becca's librarian lore, Jack's cannery legends, Elias dropping by with stew, uninvited but welcome. Storm's no match, he said, stirring pot, and laughter filled the room, fractures filled with warmth. As lights flickered on, hugs lingered, bonds reforged not iron but flexible, like bamboo in gale. The year closed in quiet crescendo, holiday gathering at the loft, Jack and Becca, Elias with a new beau glimpsed in photos, a seaside gallery owner, gentle-eyed, Luca's family zooming in from afar, table groaned with tamales and pies, toasts to survivals. To the Harlans, blood, chosen, mended. Rhett's eyes met each face, gratitude swelling, for the death that birthed return, the betrayal that taught fidelity, the love that revived not despite pain, but woven through it. In bed later, Luca's head on his chest, Rhett whispered dreams. A house in the hills, words unbound, family orbiting wide. Alive, he murmured, meaning the pulse beneath skin, the stories yet untold. Luca stirred, kissing his collarbone. Always. Outside, snow hushed the city, but inside, light burned steady. A humanistic hymn to human hearts, flawed vessels sailing toward dawn.